Right now on Morning News Now, the global fallout from an escalating war with Iran. The Pentagon announcing a 7th U.S. service member has died in action as the son of Iran's slain supreme leader is named his successor. Meanwhile, oil prices rocked by violence across the Middle East, surging past $100 a barrel, set to cause chaos on Wall Street and already bringing pain at the pump on Main Street. We will cover it all. Back at home, an act of terror, an FBI investigation unfolding right here in New York City after the NYPD says an explosive device was thrown during a protest outside Gracie Mansion, the official residence of New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani. The suspects now in police custody and how the mayor himself is reacting. And on the West Coast, some frightening moments for pop legend Rihanna over the weekend. What we know about the woman accused of shooting at the superstar's LA home while she was inside. And later in the hour, we are heading back to Milan Cortina with the multi-talented Paralympian who's actually helping his competitors earn their spot on the podium. That's a story you're going to want to see later in the hour.
And on top of that, Team USA just keeping the gold streak going with the competition.
Fantastic.
There. Good to have you with us on this Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you for starting your week with us. We are going to begin our show with the war in the Middle East that is showing no signs of easing up. On Sunday, Iran named Mojtaba Khamenei as its new supreme leader. He's the son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was assassinated in an airstrike 9 days ago.
Israel bombed a number of Iranian oil depots over the weekend. That sparked major fires blanketing the capital, Tehran, with toxic black fumes. Eyewitnesses describe the scene as apocalyptic. The latest attacks are fueling a new surge in oil prices. They've now hit more than $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022. President Trump downplayed the surge in oil prices, calling it a, quote, very small price to pay, and he is not signaling a willingness to end the war anytime soon. It's a position that was echoed by Iran's foreign minister yesterday on Meet the Press. Take a listen to what both men had to say yesterday.
We're not looking to settle. They'd like to settle. We're not looking to settle.
Well, they have to explain why they started this aggression before we come to the point to even consider a ceasefire. Of course, nobody wants to continue this war. This is not our war. This is not the war of our choice. This is imposed on us by the United States, by Israelis. They have, started this war unprovoked, unwarranted, illegally. And what we are doing is legal act of self-defense.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv. So, Matt, Khamenei's son was appointed Iran's next supreme leader, widely viewed as a hardline leader like his father. What do we know about him, and what has been the reaction both in the U.S. and in Israel?
Well, it's interesting because, of course, we hadn't actually seen Mojtaba Khamenei. It's his big day yesterday. We didn't see him on television, probably because he's in hiding, and it looks as though that's a well-deserved rationale. The United States and Israel have both openly threatened to kill him and basically anybody who was involved in his appointment. But this is a 56-year-old man. He's the son of the slain leader. He's taking over his position. And he is alone because his sister was also killed. His mother, his father, his brother, his entire family was wiped out. He is the only one remaining alive from the Khamenei family, or at least the immediate nuclear family around him. And now he's going to be running the country and running the war against the United States and Israel. He is a hardline cleric. He is very close with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, which is, of course, influential. They're the ones leading Iran's defense and leading the crackdown internally in Iran. So he is exactly the kind of person that experts had warned the U.S. and Israel could potentially take over should the Ayatollah be killed. That is exactly what has happened. He has also gone against reformers within the Iranian government who had sought to reach out to the West. So he is definitely anti-West, definitely in favor of Iran's nuclear weapons program, and definitely angry after his whole family was killed.
Matt, let's talk more about what we're seeing on the ground in Iran, these Israeli strikes on oil depots. We've seen scenes of just Tehran sort of shrouded in this thick black smoke, and then the impact that's having on oil prices. Tell us about this.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing, well, the oil prices are another matter entirely, but what we're seeing in Iran, clouds of black smoke with soot and tar that have been coming out of these destroyed energy facilities, including gas pipelines that have lit up in the middle of Tehran. We've seen huge explosions outside of the city, and a lot of people there are describing rain soaked with gasoline and oil that is falling from the sky. The Iranians have issued a declaration saying that they're concerned about the environmental impact and the impact to people's health of these attacks. It looks as though, according to Barak Ravid of Axios, that the United States was not happy with Israel for its targeting of energy infrastructure. Very much worth noting, guys. When Russia attacks the energy infrastructure in Ukraine, it is widely considered a war crime. And in fact, the International Criminal Court has issued charges against top Russian leaders for doing exactly what Israel is doing right now in Iran.
Matt, we're also watching Israel's ground and air attacks on Lebanon. The Lebanese government says more than 500,000 people are now displaced there. Real quick, what is the latest on that front?
Yeah, 500,000 people displaced, probably more than 400 people killed. It is a repeat of what we've seen in the past that ended with a truce negotiated in part by the United States that ended the fighting in November of 2024 between Israel and Hezbollah. Now we're seeing a very vicious fight right now. The Israelis say they're expanding their operations on the ground. They have long ago demanded that all Lebanese civilians retreat past the Litani River, which is essentially the dividing line that starts southern Lebanon. This is an offensive that is ongoing and one of the more proximate wars that we're seeing springing out of this fight between Israel and the U.S. and Iran.
All right, Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much.
Well, for more on the appointment of Iran's new supreme leader and what it means, let's bring in Alex Vitanka. He's a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute. Alex, good morning. Thanks, as always, for joining us. So Mr. Khamenei now steps into the role that under Iran's constitution has full control of Iran's politics and its armed forces. It also means he's the new spiritual leader. Let's talk through this. I think this was a decision that some saw coming. Do you agree with that? And what do we know about him?
Good morning to you. Look, it was not really preordained. Mojtaba Khamenei, this 56-year-old son of Ali Khamenei, has been a political figure, at least going back to 2005, when he famously helped the then President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad emerge. And he created enemies as early as 2005 because people just didn't like the fact that he was operating behind the scenes. But that's really important. He is an operator behind the scenes. His father, when he took over in 1989, had been president for 8 years. Everyone knew him. He was good at giving speeches. There are about 2 or 3 videos of Mojtaba Khamenei giving speeches. There's very little known about him. What we do know about him is he is not someone who controls much as of today. He needs time to grow into this office if he's not assassinated. And the other important thing to remember, he is not someone who got this job because of his religious credentials. He has very little, non-existent essentially. He is the man of the Revolutionary Guards. He's symbol of the power of the Revolutionary Guards. So he's not going to call the shots. The Revolutionary Guard is going to call the shots. He's going to be the symbolic figurehead that, keeps this theocracy together.
Alex, over the weekend, the IDF doubled down on its warnings that any successor to the elder Khamenei would be considered a target. We also know last week, President Trump told Axios this choice would be what he said was unacceptable. So walk us through what Iran's pick could mean for the war moving forward and just what it means perhaps for the military strategy from the U.S. and Israel.
Look, in terms of where the Iranians are at, they're saying they're in this fight till, as the foreign minister Abbas Araghchi was suggesting over the weekend, there is some kind of a permanent peace. What that means, it's anybody's guess, but that's what they want. So they're in this fight for now. They feel like if they have an agreement for another ceasefire, that the U.S. and Israel will walk away for a few months and they'll come back and bomb again. That's their position. So they want something that looks like a permanent peace. And what they can do for now, unfortunately, for the rest of the world is they can keep the rest of the world economy essentially hostage because they can do so much damage, at least to the energy markets to their south. And, the $100 barrel could get worse going forward. And takes me to the end goal of the United States and Israel. And this is the part that really is confusing for those of us who watch this on an hourly basis. Is the United States and Israel, are they going to stay together in this mission? Because we've seen already that U.S. and Israel have different goals. Israel wants the end of the Islamic Republic. United States, maybe not so. So that end goal, that clarification from the White House in terms of what it is that President Trump really wants before he can call it a victory remains to be seen.
How is his selection being received in Iran?
Look, the 5-10% of Iranians who support this regime, I'm sure, are elated. They're happy. The 86-year-old father got martyrdom, essentially, thanks to the Israeli attack. I mean, I don't think Ali Khamenei could have asked for a better death. I mean, he's, for his supporters, again, 5-10%, not a majority of Iranians. But he was killed by a foreign adversary during the holy month of Ramadan. I mean, they're going to, in their historical terms, this is befits his revolutionary sort of personality. But vast majority of Iranians right now who are trying to make a living, I can only imagine they're totally, demoralized, because this is one of the worst things that could happen. 36 years of Ali Khamenei, and now he's gone and his son takes over. This wasn't supposed to happen. Iranians were looking for a secular democratic system. Look, it's not too late, and I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the end of this war. But as of right now, the face of Mojtaba Khamenei as the new supreme leader of Iran just sends all the wrong signals to everyone in Iran, and I think around the world.
Alex Vatanka, thank you as always.
Even though the conflict is escalating, Iran's foreign minister says the country will not consider a ceasefire. He said his country must continue to fight for their people. In an exclusive interview yesterday on Meet the Press, moderator Kristen Welker pressed the minister about any support Iran might be getting from its allies.
Hello there, Joe and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke exclusively with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi about whether Iran is receiving help from Russia to help locate U.S. forces. Let me ask you, because NBC News is reporting that Iran is receiving help from Russia to help locate U.S. forces. Are you receiving any help from Russia?
Well, we have a strategic partnership with Russia.
So that's a yes?
And well, a military cooperation between Iran and Russia is not something new. It's not a secret. It has been in the past, and it's still there and will continue in the future.
Is Russia helping you locate U.S. forces? I just want to be very clear here.
Well, I don't have exact military information. As far as I know, we have a very good partnership with Russia.
So they are helping you. They are providing intelligence.
Well, they are helping us in many different directions. I don't have any detailed information.
You can see my full interview and a whole lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press right here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
All right, Kristen Welker, thank you. Let's continue our conversation with NBC News military analyst Colonel Steve Warren. Colonel, good to have you with us. So Iran's foreign minister did not explicitly confirm or deny whether Iran was receiving Russian assistance, but a few days ago, we know NBC News reported, citing 4 sources familiar with the matter, Russia was providing intelligence on the location of U.S. forces in the region. How does this transform the war for the U.S. if it's true? What would Russia even be able to tell Iran?
If it is true, and great reporting from our NBC colleagues, if it is true, it is something to be concerned about. Now, one thing that's not clear is the level of intelligence that the Russians may be providing. In other words, there are really 2 different types of troop intelligence that the Iranians might want. One is simple location type. In other words, saying, hey, Iranians, there's another American ship in the Gulf. That's one thing. So that's important for the Iranians to know, but it doesn't help them. The other type is target quality intelligence. In other words, saying there's a new ship in the Gulf, and here is the digits that you can dial into one of your missiles and have it land right on that ship. So we're not sure exactly what level. My instinct tells me it's probably the first level, not that target quality intelligence. But the Russians do have good capabilities, satellites and others, that can really help.
Colonel, NBC News is also reporting that it is increasingly likely that the U.S. was behind this strike that hit an Iranian elementary school last week. As this war unfolded, more than 170 people were killed. Many of them were children. Preliminary findings by the Trump administration are showing it was an American munition that was used, according to a U.S. official and another person familiar with the investigation. But over the weekend, when asked, President Trump said it was the Iranians who hit the school. Also last week, we heard Secretary Hegseth say this whole thing was under investigation. Walk us through how this might work. How difficult is it to determine who is responsible for hitting the school? How do those in charge of the investigation go about this?
Sure. The way they're conducting this investigation, frankly, is by, number one, looking at every target that we serviced at that time. So in that day, on that, in that time time frame. Then they're going to look at every single aircraft that flew into that target area. Then they're going to look at what exact time each aircraft executed its mission, and then they'll stack it all up. Frankly, the investigation should be largely complete by now. The Pentagon or U.S. Central Command should already know which aircraft dropped exactly which munition and exactly where it landed. Now, the next phase of the investigation will be to determine, okay, was there a targeting mistake? In other words, did we think this was a barracks and accidentally hit it? Or did we misidentify it? Was there an intelligence problem? So they're going to look at all of those different things to determine why was it that we dropped a munition on this exact spot. Now, it could be that it was simply a bad shot, right? People do miss sometimes. Sometimes the munition will malfunction and it can fly off course. Doubtful in this case because it appears to have been a direct hit on the building. So it's going to be a really deep dive look into why was our intelligence wrong? Why did we accidentally, why did we think this was a legitimate target? And to be very clear, the United States military never has and never will target a school. That will never happen.
Colonel, while we have you, oil is a huge headline today. What do you make of these Israeli attacks on Iran's oil facilities?
Well, it's certainly going to be demoralizing for the Iranians, right? These are tough attacks that are going to impact the way everyday Iranians live. Clearly, these dramatic images of this thick billowing black smoke and reports of gasoline rain, that's going to be very demoralizing for the Iranians as well. So this I believe is an attempt to really bring some pressure from the Iranian people it's the Israelis' attempt to motivate the Iranians to overthrow their government.
All right, Colonel Steve Warren, as always, appreciate your expertise. Thanks for joining us.
Well, back home in the United States, President Trump is threatening the newly appointed leader of Iran, saying he won't last long if they don't have his approval.
In a post on social media Saturday, he added certain areas and groups of people in Iran are, quote, under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death. Comes as the U.S. military announces another U.S. service member has been killed in the Middle East, the 7th since the start of the war.
For more on this, let's bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good morning. So let's start with the death of that American service member. What more do we know?
This is the 7th service member that has died in the Iran operation. We do not know a lot. We don't have a name yet. But what we do know is that this is somebody who was injured in the first wave of counterattacks from Iran that killed other service members who then sadly lost their life over the weekend. So the death count on the American side is now up to 7. We saw the dignified transfer ceremony this weekend for the first American fatalities of this war, and now that number is 7.
And back home, a lot of people are wondering if what's going on in the Middle East is going to lead to more U.S. servicemen and women going overseas, being put into harm's way. We do understand that there are National Guard units that are being called up to support the war in Iran. What are they being called on to do?
The president has broad authority in times of war or national emergency related to foreign countries to deploy National Guard units. We know that members of the New Hampshire National Guard have been deployed as part of this mission in Iran. We know that members of the Vermont National Guard have been deployed. And if the war continues, you can expect that more National Guard units will be deployed, not necessarily directly into combat in Iran, but perhaps around the world. Obviously, the United States is conducting strikes from around the Middle East, and it has other needs that have to be filled in as some of the active duty military are called, closer to the war. So you can expect, if this goes on, that you will see more National Guardsmen called into action.
John, President Trump also spoke with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the phone this weekend. It was the first time they've talked since President Trump said that he was not happy with the UK. What did they discuss? Was it productive in squashing tension here?
Yeah, I'm not sure anything will be productive in squashing tensions in that President Trump and Prime Minister Starmer do not appear to like each other very much. They have political differences, philosophical differences. I think the UK wanted to stop President Trump from actively attacking Keir Starmer. And I think the president still has things that he wants from the UK. He did tweet, or Truth Social on Saturday, that he doesn't need the UK anymore because the war is already won in Iran, as we see from the video and from all the reporting and from the continued loss of life. Obviously, the war in Iran is continuing and is not over, but there does seem to be a sour grapes sort of feeling from the president toward the prime minister. We don't know a ton about exactly what they discussed. 10 Downing Street, the prime minister's office, basically, they released a very general statement that they discussed the Middle East. But the UK is not engaged in Iran in offensive actions, and it does not look like that's going to change, this call between the two leaders notwithstanding.
All right, John Allen, thank you so much.
With the spring travel season just getting underway, airports are warning of possible travel disruptions in the coming weeks. On Sunday, a security scare triggered a massive evacuation and delays at the airport in Kansas City. On top of that, the partial government shutdown is creating TSA staffing shortages at several major travel hubs, and that's forcing travelers to wait hours just to get through security. NBC News correspondent George Solis reports on the travel troubles.
A terrifying scene at Kansas City International. Alarms blaring as travelers pack the tarmac. The dramatic moments unfolding after airport officials say they became aware of an unspecified situation. The all clear given, and the FBI later saying the threat was determined not to be credible. The scare at the airport comes as a travel nightmare is unfolding for some people just before the peak of spring break season. At Louis Armstrong New Orleans International, scores of long lines at gates and terminals. The airport urging people to arrive 3 hours before their flights, citing TSA staffing shortages from the partial government shutdown now entering its fourth week.
TSA line starts downstairs.
Texas airports with a similar warning.
I've been in this line for 2 hours, over 2 hours.
This was the scene at Houston's airport, reporting a more than 3-hour wait to get through security. Travelers calling the lines monstrous and urging lawmakers to help end the shutdown.
The government needs to get their act together so that we can live our normal life.
At one point, the airport even issuing a ground stop because of the volume.
All eyes are really going to be on TSA, not just because of this partial shutdown, but also because of the international tensions that are occurring right now.
Here in Miami, travelers are just as concerned and wondering if the situation will only get worse.
I would be pretty unhappy if that happened to me, and especially unhappy that would be happening because of political squabbling.
George Solis, NBC News.
Well, forecasters say the central U.S. is in the path of some dangerous severe storms this week, putting millions at risk. It all comes after a weekend of deadly tornadoes that swept through southern Michigan and eastern Oklahoma, claiming at least 8 lives so far.
For a closer look at what's ahead, let's look at your morning News Now weather with meteorologist Andrea Romero. Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. And we continue to have this active spring weather pattern across much of the central and southern plains today, extending into the southeast, where we're going to have this cluster of storms that will be developing and moving eastward. We have the possibility of some localized flash flooding in that location with that slight risk of severe weather. Extending all the way from Arkansas into parts of Mississippi into Alabama. And we're expecting even some storms as far east as Atlanta, Georgia, and even into parts of Texas. Today, the main threat would mostly be damaging hail, maybe 2-inch diameter or larger. So we're talking about tennis ball size hail that'll be dropping from the sky. So that can definitely lead to some problems in those areas. Now, that threat of severe weather will continue to expand. It will become even more widespread for tomorrow as the strong storm system continues to shift onto the plains. We're expecting those storms to ramp up, especially later on in the day, and we could see the strong line of tornadoes that are possible that we can have all the way from Oklahoma City down into parts of Texas, and enhanced risk up from Quincy into parts of Chicago as well. And then even on Wednesday, that storm threat will continue to move on eastward, and in parts of New England, the Northeast, they can see the line of strong storms advancing through that area. As far up into like parts of Pennsylvania, we can have some severe weather, and the threat will mostly be those damaging wind gusts of over 60 miles per hour. We have that excessive, the possibility of excessive flooding across some areas, especially in the southeast. We're expecting 1 to 3 inches of rainfall. Up north, of course, where the temperatures are colder, we could have some snowfall through Wednesday across the northern plains and into the Great Lakes. But then, of course, we are talking about those above average temperatures that we are enjoying in much of the country, 10 to 30 degrees above average. We could have some record highs today in parts of the country, as we can see there, with temperatures that'll be in the 80s right there in the heartland, extending over into the East Coast. We're looking at temperatures into the 77 maybe high in Washington, D.C. Here in New York City, we're talking about 70 degrees. But it is a roller coaster. We were talking about that. It's, we're getting into that springtime weather pattern where we have those highs and lows. So we are expecting some temperatures to drop by the end of the week and back to reality for many of us.
It is still March.
Yes.
Yeah, the fake outs. Thank you.
Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including the State Department's urgent race to bring Americans back home in the wake of the escalating war in the Middle East.
First, though, after the break, a potential act of terror shaking New York City this morning. A look at the teenage suspects accused of throwing an explosive device near the official residence of Mayor Zohran Mamdani over the weekend. That's next. Stay with us. Welcome back. The FBI is investigating a potential act of terrorism here in New York City. Police say 2 suspects are in custody after a homemade explosive device was thrown near Gracie Mansion. That's the official residence of Mayor Zohran Mamdani. It happened during a protest over the weekend. NBC News correspondent Valerie Castro has the details.
The FBI and NYPD investigating a bomb thrown outside the New York City mayor's home as a potential act of terrorism. Police say it happened during dueling protests outside Gracie Mansion Saturday while Mayor Zohran Mamdani and his wife were home. The FBI says 2 men identified as Ibrahim Qayoumi and Amir Balat are now in federal custody after being arrested at the scene. 2 people familiar with the matter telling NBC News both men allegedly made pro-ISIS statements during their arrest. The NYPD bomb squad finding a suspicious container inside a car near the scene and will be taking it for testing, according to a source familiar. And a separate person briefed on the investigation says the container found in the car, believed to be used by the suspects, is concerning to investigators. Police recovering 2 devices after the protests, confirming one of them was a homemade bomb that could have caused serious injury or death.
The devices, which were a bit smaller than a football, appear to be a jar wrapped in black tape, importantly with nuts, bolts, and screws, along with a hobby fuse.
Police say the suspects were part of a counter-protest against anti-Islam demonstrators led by conservative influencer Jake Lang.
There was a lot of yelling back and forth, and then it just kind of erupted into a fight.
Mayor Mamdani issuing a statement saying violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device and hurt others is not only criminal, it is reprehensible and the antithesis of who we are. Valerie Castro, NBC News.
For more on the investigation, let's bring in NBC News law enforcement analyst and former ATF special agent in charge, Jim Kavanagh. Jim, good morning. Appreciate you being here as always. So police say that these containers found on the scene, they were homemade explosive devices packed with nuts, bolts, and screws, ignited with a hobby fuse. And then inside the device, the compound TATP was also found. Explain all that to us and tell us about what that design says for investigators about how dangerous this was, how much planning may have gone into it.
Savannah, we're waking up to a miracle, really. We should have 3 dead NYPD supervisors this morning. This was an improvised hand grenade. It was thrown at 3 supervisors of NYPD, 2 sergeants and an assistant chief, a 2-star assistant chief, as they advanced on the sidewalk toward the bomber who was lighting the grenade. And he threw the grenade at them, and it landed at their feet. I mean, it's a miracle they're even alive, because if this bomb detonated, this improvised grenade detonated, it would have killed all 3 of those officers for sure. It would have not penetrated or hurt Gracie Mansion. Might have broke a window or something. But it's an anti-personnel improvised hand grenade that used triacetone triperoxide, which is a improvised homemade mixture promoted by Al-Qaeda mostly, 20, 25 years ago. We all remember their statements, make a bomb in the kitchen of your mom. So it's a bathtub gin concoction of explosives you mix up. It's very unstable, dangerous, even to the maker. But it can be very deadly. We're just fortunate that this, did not detonate just by chance, because it's such a homemade concoction and a homemade bomb.
No doubt, Jim. The suspects allegedly referenced ISIS while they were being questioned, so now the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force is involved. What are the factors that would determine whether this gets treated as a terrorism case versus a criminal explosives case?
Well, those always go hand in hand. So when you use bombs and then you're connected to a terrorist group like ISIS, maybe meeting with ISIS or inspired by ISIS, terrorism charges, international terrorism charges can be layered on by the United States Attorney's Office. The task force there, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, FBI, ATF, NYPD, all the bomb experts are there. They're going to get every scintilla of evidence and make all those charges, the federal explosive charges. Trying to kill these 3 officers is just a standout, unbelievable thing going here. So there's a lot of charges.
All right, Jim, thank you very much.
In Los Angeles, a woman has been arrested after allegedly shooting at pop star Rihanna's home. Police said a woman drove up and shot at the residence with an AR-15 style rifle on Sunday. Rihanna was at home at the time of the shooting, but no one was injured. Police say the woman believed to be the shooter was taken into custody and that 4 rounds or bullet fragments hit parts of the property. It wasn't known whether Rihanna's husband, A$AP Rocky, or their children were home at the time. Representatives for the couple did not immediately respond to requests for comment.
Coming up, continuing coverage of the war in Iran this morning.
After the break, how America's State Department is racing to get its citizens out of harm's way in the Middle East and back to safety. That's next. We're back to the latest on the war in Iran. After a weekend of increased bombings in Iran, violence is intensifying throughout the region. That includes Lebanon, where more than 500,000 people are now displaced.
And yesterday, Iran named Mojtaba Khamenei as its new supreme leader. He's the son of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was assassinated during the first strikes by the U.S. and Israel.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is in Tel Aviv for us again and joins us with the latest. Richard, good morning. What has the reaction been like both in Iran and abroad to Khamenei's son being named as the next supreme leader?
So many things to unpack here. First, let me tell you, if I can, where I am and what we're seeing after the appointment and as Iran is going through this transitionary period, because Mojtaba has, once he was announced as the new supreme leader, Iran immediately began launching more strikes at Israel and around the region. So Iran has a new leader. It is also using a new kind of weapon. And you can see the impact of this weapon system right where I'm standing. If you look up, you see that small hole in the ceiling of this building. That was caused by a bomblet that was dropped from a cluster munition. Now, up until now, Iran has mostly been firing drones and ballistic missiles, and Israel and other countries have had a tremendous amount of success shooting them down because ballistic missiles in particular fly in a very predictable pattern. They have a single powerful warhead. But these bomblets, they're more like shotguns. They burst in the air and then drop lots of these small bombs and cause a tremendous amount of damage. They're very hard to stop because when they fall, they just fall with gravity, so they can be impacted by wind or the direction that the missile was moving in, and they are they're a challenge, a new aspect of this conflict. And you can see, even though they were small, there is really nothing left of this apartment. The floor is also damaged. They're worried now that the floor is going to collapse into the other apartments below. So small bomb, hard to stop, a lot of damage. Now, going back to the reaction to the appointment of this new supreme leader. Many people who watch Iran very closely are trying to figure out what this means. Mojtaba is considered a hardliner. He's considered someone who's quite close to the Revolutionary Guard. And he is somewhat of an odd choice, even for Iran itself, because he's the son of the late supreme leader. He also didn't quite have the rank. There's a ranking system among the clerics. He didn't have the rank of Ayatollah. So it seemed that he was pushed into this job. But one of the reasons it's so unusual for the Iranian system itself is the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Government that took power in 1979 took over from the Shah, took over from a hereditary monarchy, and instead replaced it with a theocracy, with the leader supposedly inspired by the revolutionary spirit and inspired by God. But now you have the supreme leader, the position of the supreme leader being passed from father to son. So it has not been universally accepted among many Iranians. It is problematic, and Israeli and Arab officials think that he may become a new target and may also be assassinated like his father.
Richard Engel, appreciate your reporting from Tel Aviv. Thank you so much.
Let's talk about the operation to get Americans in the region to safety. We're going to bring in Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State and foreign policy expert. Joel, good morning. Thank you for being here. So the State Department has now said that over 32,000 Americans have safely returned to the U.S. Since this conflict escalated. They are calling this proactive evacuation, saying that they were using charter flights, ground transport, and around-the-clock crisis support. We've heard, though, from Americans right here on the show who said they had to find their own way out as airspace closed. Flights were canceled, options disappeared, even receiving information that was kind of their only option. Let's listen to some of their stories.
Every alert that they gave and all advice that they gave was like a day at least too late. Even when it wasn't too late, it was impossible to act upon, and then they would just hang up.
State Department should not be telling you to take a commercial carrier when there is no commercial carrier.
Those were two Americans, Joel, that had arrived at JFK Airport here in New York over the weekend. How well has this response actually worked? How much of a response was there, really, period, for Americans abroad?
Yeah, Savannah, Joe, it's good to be with you this morning. Look, it's a very reactive response as we're seeing and as you've put out anecdotally, and thank you for sharing that, as well as, of course, the overall numbers. It's taken too long. This should have been planned for ahead of time. We, the United States, launched this strike, so we knew the timing, or at least theoretically, we should have known the timing. And so the State Department should have been issuing travel advisories earlier than it did, as well as had lined up commercial air flights to take out American citizens who wanted to leave, as well as gotten our military aircraft organized, which I don't think has yet really become robust. So they're catching up. The good news is no one has died, at least to the best of our knowledge, and that's really the most important thing, because that's the number one job of diplomats abroad. But really, it's very reactive and very slow.
Joel, I want to ask you about something that some Senate Democrats led by Jeanne Shaheen have pointed out. Of the 14 countries where Americans have been urged to leave, only 6 right now actually have confirmed U.S. ambassadors. They argue that could hurt coordination during a crisis like this. How much does that kind of diplomatic leadership, those ambassadors, matter in moments like this?
Yeah, Joe, I'm glad you brought it up. Look, there are a couple things here inside the department that are happening that do have an impact. First, of course, as you described, the lack of an ambassador that Senate confirmed means that the leadership really is not tightly tied into the top. There, of course, is a charge, an acting leader, the number 2 who is running things, but an ambassador is different. It's higher level. They can call the leadership of the host government, as well as have a direct line to the White House, and that's just not there. And that makes coordination much harder, and that means that Americans on the ground get the delayed response that we're seeing. And then the second is these DOGE cuts last year that fired a lot of the layers of the quote, needless bureaucracy. Much of that was within the Bureau for Management, and in particular, the Bureau for Consular Affairs. These bureaus are the ones that actually do the work that we're now talking about. And so the muscle memory and long-term understanding of evacuations, and I have to add, evacuations happen often overseas. And so there's a lot of people in the department historically who know how to do it, but many of those have now been pushed out and pushed aside over the last year.
What should Americans who are still in the region be preparing for? And what is the best way at this point, this long into this conflict, to get help?
Stay engaged. First and foremost, get on the website, sign up for the STEP program, the Traveler Emergency Program, STEP. That's important so that the State Department has your data and information, can contact you. I also think another wrinkle, and my friends in Congress will not be happy, but people should contact their congressional offices and make sure that their direct member knows that their constituents are overseas, so that can be followed up as well. That's very important to keep the pressure on. And of course, go to state.gov and stay engaged. And I think it's just staying on top of it right now. Hopefully the system is churning, as you described it at the beginning, but it is a little bit later than it should have been.
All right, Joel Rubin, thanks so much for being here.
Coming up, a bit of tough news for all you allergy sufferers out there this morning.
It seems like sneezing season has been lasting a whole lot longer lately. Is climate change to blame for all this spring misery? The doctor's in. That's up next. We're back with some not so good news for anyone who suffers from seasonal allergies. According to a new study, allergy season across the U.S. is getting more intense, starting earlier and lasting longer.
The report blames climate change. It says warmer temperatures and pollution are causing spikes in pollen production. That's making the season about 3 weeks longer than it was back in the 1970s.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar joins us with some tips to help prevent allergy symptoms from getting out of hand. Dr. Azar, good morning. So let's just start on the causes. Like we just said, what are the main causes of seasonal allergies?
Yeah, well, as you guys mentioned, this is true. Allergy season is starting about 20 days earlier than in past decades. And also the pollen seems to be about 21% higher and more powerful than in the past. So we usually talk about our exposure to pollen as kind of a continuum. In the spring and early summer, we have both deciduous and evergreen trees and plants. That moves into grass in the middle of the summer. And then we get to ragweed towards the end of summer and early fall. Mold, on the other hand, can be a year-round culprit.
So there's still, flu and other junk going around right now because it is still technically winter. It can be tough to tell the difference between, say, a cold and those seasonal allergies. What are some of the ways we can know if it's allergies or if it's something else?
Yeah, so the symptoms of allergies do very much resemble the cold in terms of, nasal congestion, the stuffy nose, sneezing, maybe a little bit of aches and fatigue. But the big difference, and the number one thing that'll help people tell the difference, is itchiness. Allergies are going to cause itchy eyes, itchy nose, itchy throat. Colds do not do that. And the other thing with a cold and flu, guys, usually it's like 7 to 10 days. Allergies keep going on and on and on. If you're really unclear, you can certainly try an antihistamine and see if your symptoms get better as opposed to treating it as a cold. You can have both at the same time. It's not always that easy, but really the itchiness is the thing, the pearl that I want people to remember.
So you mentioned an antihistamine. What else can people try to do to prevent or help symptoms here when it comes to allergies?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really important is that it's starting early. So we would recommend that you actually, if you're an allergy sufferer, especially in the Northeast, where we're kind of like average right now for trees, you can start taking your allergy medicine now. That includes like a nasal spray, like a Flonase, which is a steroid spray, as well as an oral antihistamine. You want to try to limit your exposure. So that means the pollen is usually highest first thing in the morning. So don't go out and exercise right then and there. Make your indoor environment good as well. What do I mean by that? You can have a HEPA filter. If you have an HVAC system, that filter needs to be exchanged every couple of months, and that will also sort of filter out those allergens. In terms of medications, as I mentioned, Savannah, there are over-the-counter antihistamines, things like Claritin, Allegra, but antihistamines can be taken by mouth, they can be taken in the nose, and they can be eye drops as well, which can be super effective. Nasal sprays, as I mentioned, there are prescription medications. And then there's always allergen immunotherapy, which is, of course, going to be prescribed by an allergist if your symptoms really get very severe.
Yeah, so if you do have to see a doctor, at what point should you do that if your seasonal allergies just keep bugging you?
Yeah, Joe. I think if you've tried all of these things, you're doing all the right things, you're coming inside, you're washing your hair, you're cleaning your pets down and all of that stuff, and you've been taking your medicines over the counter and it's just not helping and not working, then please see an allergist, because they can, offer things like shots and immunotherapy that can really desensitize you. And one thing that I always want to mention is those decongestants, the oral decongestants. The FDA has still to formally remove them from the market. There are nasal decongestant sprays that allergists really don't recommend, certainly not for continued use because they can cause rebound. But this is why we have allergists. They do such a great job helping folks with their seasonal allergy symptoms.
All right, Dr. Azar, always good to see you. Thank you.
Some big headlines out of Wall Street this morning, including a major leadership shakeup over at OpenAI.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, guys. This new leadership change is raising new questions about AI and national security. Caitlin Kalinowski, who oversaw hardware at OpenAI, has resigned, citing concerns about the company's agreement with the Pentagon. In a post on X, she said it was rushed without the guardrails defined. After the initial deal was made, CEO Sam Altman unveiled a reworked agreement, which he says provides stronger guarantees that the military won't use OpenAI's system for domestic surveillance. Over at Samsung, a major labor dispute is brewing. Unionized workers will vote this week on whether to stage an 18-day strike. The unions are demanding a 7% wage increase and a better bonus system after months of stalled negotiations. Now, if approved, the strike would take place in May and June and would be only the second walkout in Samsung's history. We've reached out to Samsung and have yet to hear back. And X is testing a new way to blend ads into conversations. Some users have noticed new links under their posts. For example, one user posting a screenshot of the new ad that said, quote, "Get Starlink" on a post that mentioned the company. The head of product at X posting in response, quote, "Trying to make an ad product that isn't an ad." He also responded to a user's suggestion to allow affiliate commission if someone does in fact make a purchase, and it does not seem that's part of the plan here. We've reached out to X and haven't yet heard back. Now, guys, I'm not really surprised. I feel like we're kind of seeing ads on every social media platform and honestly really everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
They're definitely all over the place. But they pay the bills.
It makes sense.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Coming up, we are heading back to Milan Cortina this morning.
When Morning News Now returns, we got a special look at one Team USA athlete who is putting a personal touch on the Paralympic Games. We'll explain next. We have this hour with the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games, which are officially underway in Milan. After the first weekend of events, China is leading the medal board with 16 total wins so far. Team USA has scored 5 medals, including 1 gold for Oksana Masters in the women's 7.5-kilometer biathlon race. This is her 20th Paralympic medal.
That is just incredible. Meanwhile, one Team USA para snowboarder, Mike Schultz, may not have medaled in his event yesterday, but he's built something that's helping some other competitors earn a spot on the podium. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa spoke with Schultz before his competition. She joins us live from Cortina. Emily, good morning.
Hey guys, good to be with you. It seems every para snowboarder, no matter the country that I speak to, knows Mike Schultz. That's because the vast majority of his competitors in his classification rely and use his prosthetics that he designs and assembles back home in Minnesota.
When Mike Schultz isn't charging down a mountain, working out in the gym, or tending to his family's horses,
come here, Chief.
He's here, his workshop in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
The next shop in here is our assembly room.
It's where he designed and built his own high-performance prosthetic that he's now using at the Paralympic Games in Italy.
What gave you the confidence to decide, I can build this?
My second passion in life is I'm a creator. I love to, have an idea and go out to my shop and just build it. And what better project to work on than your own leg?
Schultz's left leg was amputated above the knee after he was thrown from his snowmobile while racing in 2008. It only took the professional athlete a few months to start exploring adaptive sports.
Not knowing what was next, sport's the one thing that really motivated me to look through those difficult times because it really challenges your body and mind to be the best you can be.
Schultz showed us how his prosthetic designs progressed over the years, growing into a company, BioDapt, which he runs with his wife.
Here we go.
They now supply more than 90% of Schultz's competitors who are lower limb amputees at the Games, including from Japan, Germany, Canada, and Team USA. Schultz is eyeing a 4th medal in what he says is his final Paralympics, but is proud BioDapt will be represented on that podium no matter his time.
How does it feel to rep red, white, and blue, even your prosthetic is red, for one last time at the Paralympic Games?
It's the ultimate exclamation point on my athletic career to be at the games in Italy, wearing that red, white, and blue jersey in a sport that I've, helped elevate in performance with our prosthetic equipment. I mean, it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I'd say so. Pretty freaking cool is right. Mike Schultz, by the way, actually brings toolkits to important events like here at the Paralympics to help with any issues with the prosthetics. I asked some of his teammates, Brenna Huckabee, Noah Elliott, who, by the way, won silver medal yesterday, how often he is helping athletes with their prosthetics. They say the better question is, when isn't he helping athletes with their prosthetics? So a man of many talents. He is due to compete again later this week, guys.
Oh, that's just incredible. Emily, thank you so much. And you can catch full coverage of Mike Schultz and all the other competitors in the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games right now on NBC and Peacock.
Minnesota nice on snow and ice. That'll do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning. Thanks for joining us this Monday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Pryor. Right now on Morning News Now, new leader, new threat. Iran elects the son of slain Ayatollah Khamenei as its new supreme leader. But President Trump says any new leader is, quote, not going to last long without his approval. Comes after a weekend of escalation with the war sending the price of a barrel of oil above $100. All this as the U.S. pays tribute to 6 fallen soldiers and the death of a 7th service member is announced. We are covering it all. Death row plea. Alabama is days away from executing a man over his part in a deadly robbery, despite the fact he did not kill anyone. How the case is shining a light on the controversial felony murder law. Disturbing attack. A lucky escape for Rihanna after her Beverly Hills house is shot at with an AR-15 style rifle while she was home. Several bullets striking the home the singer shares with rapper A$AP Rocky. But we know about the woman who's now in custody, accused of firing the shots. And later this hour, sneeze season. If you're celebrating some spring-like weather after February's frigid temps, we have a little bad news for you. Allergy season is back. It's getting longer. It's getting stronger. We're going to look at the science behind the booming pollen levels. Our Dr. Azar tells us the best ways to protect yourself. The good news is there are some options.
Yeah.
Let's begin this hour with the Iran war. The conflict now entering its second week with little evidence of any side backing down.
On Sunday, Iran announced its new supreme leader would be Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the slain former leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He was killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes last week. This all comes after Israel bombed multiple Iranian oil depots over the weekend. The fires released toxic black fumes we're showing you right now. It shrouded Iran's capital, Tehran. The attacks on energy infrastructure are also driving up oil prices to more than $100 a barrel. That's a high not seen since 2022. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest. Richard, good morning.
Good morning. So Iran now has a new leader, and if there was any hope that this change in leadership would end the war or slow down the war, we're not seeing any evidence of that. In fact, there have been, just in the last few hours, more attacks against Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, here in Israel. And one thing we're seeing here in Tel Aviv is that Iran is also using a different kind of weapon. It has begun to use cluster munitions that burst in the air and then drop many small bomblets, and they're very hard to stop. As fires continued to rage this morning in Tehran after Israeli jets destroyed an oil depot, blanketing the city of 10 million in smoke, fumes, and noxious gases. Iran made a critical decision, appointing a new supreme leader, 56-year-old Mojtaba Khamenei. He's the son of the Ayatollah the U.S. and Israel killed on the first day of the war. His choice is an act of defiance and a show of resistance to President Trump, who'd specifically called him unacceptable. Mojtaba's rise may prolong the war. Israel has threatened to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, and Arab officials tell NBC News Mojtaba specifically now has an X on his back, marked like his father for assassination. Regime supporters in Iran celebrated Mojtaba's ascension. apparently to burnish his credentials. Moments after Mojtaba was announced as successor late Sunday, Iran unleashed a heavy barrage of missile and drone attacks. Many strikes directed at oil facilities across the region. Both sides now are attacking oil. Arab officials tell NBC News Iran's strategy is to drive up oil prices to create pressure for a ceasefire. The U.S. and Israel started this war with preemptive attacks in the midst of peace negotiations with Iran. Iran's foreign minister left open the door for a settlement to end the war on Meet the Press.
Well, they have to explain why they started this aggression before we come to the point to even consider a ceasefire. Of course, nobody wants to continue this war.
Especially no one in Lebanon, which has become a war within the Iran war, with Israel and Hezbollah fighting intensely. Hundreds are dead so far, and hundreds of thousands of Lebanese have been displaced. In one sense, Mojtaba, the new supreme leader of Iran, represents continuity. He is the son of the former supreme leader, considered a hardline, expected to follow many of the same kinds of policies. But there is an inherent contradiction here that some in Iran are not comfortable with, including some members of the Iranian leadership. When the Islamic revolutionary system came into power in 1979, they overthrew the Shah, which was a hereditary monarchy. And the idea of this Islamic revolutionary system is that they would be better, not follow the Shah's example. But now what we're seeing with this new succession move is that power once again has passed, even in their own system, from father to son.
All right, Richard, thank you very much.
Well, let's get more analysis with Danny Davis. He's a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and works at Defense Priorities and host of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Good to have you with us. So I want to get your reaction to what Richard was talking about there. Oil, these Israeli attacks on Iran's oil facilities and Iran then hitting others throughout the region. How big of a deal is that in the escalation of this battle?
Well, it's a huge escalation, and it's an unnecessary one because I understand that Israel and the United States have chosen to go to war against Iran, and they want to hurt them. And so you're thinking, all right, Lindsey Graham has long, for many, many months, been asking for this to go against the Iranian oil infrastructure to give them long-term harm. But the problem is they have the ability to strike back. And so you're seeing it on the screen. Richard Engel just showed it right there about that the Iran has replied in kind. There has also been some strikes against Iranian water desalination plant, which is vital in the Middle East. Then apparently Iran also struck back, I think in Bahrain, if I'm not mistaken. But every time you hit Iran with something, you're going to get a tit-for-tat kind of response, which is going to cause harm to our side. And listen, this is not going to have any end anytime soon. And it's hard for me to see what the objective is if we just want to harm Iran, but harming ourselves in the process. I'm not sure where this leads. This is going to accomplish the goals that President Trump has set out.
Let's talk about that Iranian school bombing. It killed more than 170 people. This was back at the start of this war. Well, a U.S. official and a person familiar with the investigation here told NBC News that preliminary findings are indicating it was likely a U.S. munition that hit the school. The sources said the U.S. is still looking into whether the strikes were the result of either bad intelligence or poor targeting. Yesterday, though, the president denied U.S. responsibility. He blamed Iran instead. But how does an investigation into something like this proceed? And what could happen if it is confirmed that the U.S. was behind it?
Well, I mean, the first thing that we would do is look at our targeting data. What did we use to pick a target? What did we attack? And there have been numerous independent assessments that this area was targeted by the United States. And so then the question is, was this an errant missile? Was it an improper targeting, meaning did we think that this was actually some military target and we selected it on purpose by mistake? Or was it something that we targeted a different building, but the missile misfired and went to there instead? That's what we would need to ascertain first. But then in terms of the outcome and what it would mean, I mean, honestly, I mean, we're just being core level honest here. It's not going to make any difference on anything. Something after the fact could come to the pass, but it sure makes us look bad, whether it was a misfire or a mistargeting, because when you have that many kids killed in a tragic accident right at the beginning, that puts us in a much worse position in the public relations war that's also going on.
Let's talk about something else NBC News is reporting. That's that Russia is providing intelligence to Iran on the location of U.S. forces in the region. That's according to 4 sources who are familiar with the matter. We heard yesterday Iran's foreign minister won't confirm or deny that when he spoke with NBC News. But if it is true, I mean, what could that mean for the war?
Well, listen, I think you need to add China into that same category there, because they have actually been releasing public satellite imagery of American bases and American warships, locations where things are. And the assumption is if they're releasing that publicly, they're probably also giving classified information to Iran as well. And listen, we just have to understand with actions come counteractions and responses. Just like you have hitting oil infrastructure for oil infrastructure, when we are helping Russia's enemy in Ukraine and giving them weapons, ammunition, targeting data, which we give to the Ukrainians to kill Russians, it's not surprising at all that we get some of that in return here. And so this is one of those, things coming back to haunt you that you've been doing. And so now that's just going to make the Iranian side more effective.
Lieutenant Colonel Danny Davis, as always, thank you.
Well, this morning, President Trump is threatening Iran's newest leader, saying over the weekend they are not going to last long if they don't have his approval. This comes as the president and first lady attended a dignified transfer of 6 service members killed during the conflict with Iran. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake has the latest on all this for us. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. And look, as we enter the war's second full week, its toll is becoming all the more apparent. Toll in lives and in dollars spent, and its political and economic ramifications for the country. The president commenting on all of it over the weekend, leaving open the possibility of deepening U.S. involvement on the ground in Iran.
This morning, the toll of the Iran war growing. Yesterday, U.S. Central Command announced the death of a 7th service member. Over the weekend, the president and first lady paying tribute to 6 of the fallen, attending a dignified transfer at Dover Air Force Base for the Army reservists killed in Kuwait. It comes as the president is weighing whether to send ground troops into Iran.
Possible for very good reason, have to be very good reason. And I would say if we ever did that, they would be so decimated that they wouldn't be able to fight at the ground level.
3 current and former officials with knowledge of the conversations tell NBC News Mr. Trump has discussed the idea of sending a small contingent of service members. When asked about using troops to potentially seize Iran's nuclear fuel,
we haven't gone after it, but something we could do later on.
His defense secretary saying the U.S. will go, quote, as far as we need to in order to be successful. And on American deaths, saying this.
Things like this don't happen without casualties. There will be more casualties. And no one is, especially our generation, knows what it's like to see Americans come home in caskets. But that doesn't weaken us one bit. It stiffens our spine and our resolve.
Democrats accusing the administration of having an incoherent approach on Iran.
The big question is, why did we get into this war? What are our strategic objectives? Because they shift every day. And what is the plan to get out of this conflict?
While Republicans are largely cheering on the commander-in-chief.
You just wait to see what comes in the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks meaning what?
We're going to blow the hell out of these people.
The ongoing conflict proving unpopular with Americans. And many worried about those higher prices at the pump. The cost of oil jumping above $100 per barrel for the first time in 4 years.
We figured oil prices would go up, which they will. They'll also come down. They'll come down very fast.
The president suggesting those price spikes are temporary, but the timeline for this conflict laid out by the president and his team suggests we're still much closer to its beginning than its end. Remember, President Trump has said he expects combat to last 4 to 5 weeks. And in that interview we showed with the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth said, quote, U.S. hasn't even really begun to start the aerial bombardment of Iran. Savannah?
All right, Garrett, thank you.
As we've been discussing, the war with Iran is sending oil prices to some of their highest levels in almost 4 years. NBC News chief international correspondent Keir Simmons has that part of the story from Dubai, where they're now turning off GPS to help prevent more drone strikes.
Iranian oil installations engulfed in flames over the weekend after Israeli strikes. And this morning, thick smoke rising over a Bahrain oil refinery. The world economy a target in this ever-escalating war. Oil prices surging. The critical Strait of Hormuz, passage to 20% of the world's oil, effectively closed to shipping. Qatar now warning of $150 a barrel oil. President Trump downplaying it over the weekend.
We figured oil prices would go up, which they will. They'll also come down.
And posting that short-term oil prices are, quote, a very small price to pay, adding only fools would think differently. Iran's answer, the election of a new Islamist leader, the son of Ayatollah Khamenei, assassinated at the beginning of the war. The death toll rising on all sides. The US saying a 7th American service member has died from injuries. The White House still not ruling out American troops on the ground in the future, while heavy strikes continue in Kuwait, a government building ablaze overnight from an Iranian drone. In Bahrain, 32 injured this morning, including teenagers and a 2-month-old infant. And a desalination plant hit, raising fears of water shortages in a region that relies on desalted water for drinking and washing. Civilians, including hundreds of thousands of Americans, enduring a long weekend, including a blast close to Dubai's international airport and a residential tower block hit. The UAE saying both caused by intercepted drone debris.
All right, that's Keir Simmons reporting.
Let's get more on the economic fallout here the war with Iran is causing here in the United States.
AAA says gas prices have spiked around 50 cents a gallon in the last week, while the Dow is down 3% since a week ago.
For more, let's bring in NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch, who's here with a look at what to expect this week. Emily, good morning. So, I mean, if you filled up over the weekend, you already know that these gas prices are way up. Do we know what prices are going to look like over this coming week?
Yeah, so if anyone went to the pumps today, they've seen prices are at $3.50, about that right now. So that's about 50 cents up from last week. It's 60 cents from just a month ago. And then oil prices have also seen a major spike overnight. For the first time, they hit $100 per barrel since July of 2022. So that's a huge spike there. You know, people really didn't think that we would see prices more than $90 per barrel, but prices have really blew through the 100 range. And really, this is because the main oil producers in the Middle East have stopped production, a big part of that. And the main reason is because of the Strait of Hormuz. Now, 1/5 of the global oil supply runs through this passageway, and essentially it's closed at this point. So a lot of the ships are not able to get through. And therefore, the main OPEC producers are really not producing at that point. They don't have storage. They're not able to get anything out at this point. And so we're really seeing an impact there in price, and it's going to trickle down. I think a big question here is how long this is going to last, and it really depends on the escalating tensions over there and how long that we see that escalation.
And it's not just gas prices, also jet fuel, also diesel. We're expecting a record travel summer. How's that going to impact everyone's budgets as they start to plan for that travel?
Totally. So fuel up, jet fuel's up, also diesel's up. So prices, I think, will start to go up for airfare already. We were hearing for spring break specifically that the average cost of a spring break trip was going to be about $7,200, according to travel insurance provider SquareMouth. That's about a 4% year-over-year increase. Now, if you have not booked your trips yet for spring break, definitely should go ahead and do that. A bright spot was going to be gas prices, because we were seeing lower gas prices prior to all of these escalated tensions. Now we're seeing a lot higher gas prices. So those who are driving and traveling in that way, you know, maybe we're doing that strategically to keep some costs down. Now they're going to see higher prices there. But if you haven't booked your summer travel yet, we could see gas prices go up to $4 for a gallon. So I would say a lot of experts are kind of saying, get on that, book your airfare, especially for spring break right now, but also for your summer travel as well, because we're expecting to see prices hike.
What do we think for the stock market this week?
Yeah, so we saw, big lows last week. It was the Dow. It was the worst week for the Dow in about a year. As for the S&P 500, it was the worst since October. And so stocks have really been down dramatically across the board. And so the concern here is that these higher energy prices are really, tying the Fed's hands and could really make an impact for your 401k. But however, with your retirement money, I mean, guys, anyone who has invested and is concerned about their 401k, they're looking for the long term, right? So if you're getting concerned about, shocks and dips, think about the future. If you're managing your money in the proper way, stick with it. You could see, things turn around in the future. And that's really the way to do it. You can't pull your money out so quickly anyway. So I think people should just kind of, settle with that. If they're managing their money in the right way, they should be good to go.
All right, Emily, thank you.
Communities in Oklahoma and Michigan are recovering this morning after deadly tornadoes hit the region over the weekend. Take a look at your screen. You can see some of the devastation across both states. Now forecasters are warning even more severe weather is ahead. Meteorologist Andrea Romero will have all that in a moment. But first, NBC News correspondent George Solis has the latest on some of the impact we're seeing across the region. George, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, this was a massive storm system that stretched from Texas all the way to the Great Lakes. We're talking tornadoes, thunderstorms, and torrential rain that really just carved a path of destruction throughout the country's heartland and left at least 8 people dead. Torrential and blinding rain pounding parts of Texas. In Rio Grande City, this gas station roof collapsing onto a car as lightning lit up the sky.
And we're getting flooded in the parking lot.
The deluge flooding streets, making travel treacherous across the Gulf Coast in cities like Baton Rouge.
Oh my God. It is lifting houses.
The turbulent weather unfolding as communities in Michigan and Oklahoma began cleaning up after more than a dozen confirmed tornadoes.
It's like everything you worked so hard for. Gone.
At least 8 people were killed in the storms.
Oh, I hope everyone's okay over there.
In Union City, Michigan, a powerful EF3 twister tearing through the town. The earliest tornado on record for the state and the deadliest in 45 years.
Tornado on the ground right now.
In Oklahoma, residents scrambling for shelter as storms swept through the area.
And I was looking out and you could see the flashes of light from town when it lost power, and you could see the vortex, and I yelled at my family, we got to get in the cellar.
And the threat isn't over. Millions remain in the path of more dangerous storms this week, many of them still cleaning up as they brace for the next round. Yeah, agencies like the National Weather Service continue to learn more about these specific tornadoes, as some officials and residents are growing concerned about more warnings to help people better prepare for these storms. And all of this, Joe, as millions more brace for that severe weather that potentially could strike this week.
All right, George, thank you.
And now let's bring in meteorologist Andrea Romero for even more on what's ahead.
Hey, Andrea, good morning.
Good morning, Joe and Savannah. And yes, we do have more severe weather that's going to be impacting parts of the country today and through midweek. Mostly we have the stationary front right now that's impacting the southeast today, where we're expecting severe storms to develop and bring localized flash flooding possible to this area, as well as some damaging hail as well. We have this other storm system that's going to be moving onto the plains tomorrow, and that's going to extend and bring more widespread perhaps damage across the heart of the country, extending into the Midwest as these severe storms extend into the plains, bringing some snow even to the northern tier of the country. And then on Wednesday, it continues to move on eastward. We're talking about the threat of severe weather all the way up into Pennsylvania. And that includes, of course, the possibility of hail, strong gusty winds, and some tornadoes. So as we look at the severe threat through the evening today, it's concentrating today mostly along the Gulf Coast states. We're talking about marginal to a slight risk of severe weather. The main threat today, as I mentioned before, is probably damaging hail in this area. But we could see a tornado or two, and we will have those wind gusts also possibly more than 60 miles per hour. And then that threat expands even more to the north and to the east tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a very strong possibility of having some tornadic activity, especially especially we have that enhanced risk of that severe weather here in parts of Missouri, into Illinois and Indiana, and also into the south. We're expecting a line of severe weather to extend maybe from Texas into Arkansas. And then that extends into, like I mentioned, the northeast with the threat of those damaging wind gusts for Wednesday. As far as the rainfall forecast, we do have that localized flash flooding risk, especially for today, along parts of Texas into Arkansas, where we're expecting those heavy bands of rain to develop. So we have to look out for that. And we have that snowfall forecast up north, especially in the northern parts of the Great Lakes, where we can see perhaps half a foot of snowfall accumulate. But then the other story, we're tracking the severe weather, but we're also tracking that springtime warmth that we have been enjoying. 10 to 30 degrees above average are the highs that we're expecting today. Temperatures in the 80s, in the 70s. That extends all the way into the northeast. Tomorrow, New York can hit 70, the first time that's happened since October of last year. And then the gradual drop. We return to reality by the end of the week in the northeast. We're looking at temperatures highs on Fridays, perhaps close to 49 degrees. So we're going to see that difference in temperatures the next couple of days. And out west, it's kind of quiet, but we do have fire alerts. So we want to make sure we're careful there from the Rockies into the west and central plains due to the combination of that warm temperature and, of course, that low humidity and those gusty winds that we're expecting in that area.
I'm sure the people who are about to get snow love to look east and see the people who are getting 70s in the forecast.
Right? Yes.
Like,
don't worry, we'll be back down there.
I was there.
Thank you. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now. Later on, as the Paralympics continue, we will bring you the story of the Minnesota athlete lifting up his fellow competitors by designing high-performance prosthetics for the slopes.
Up first, attack in New York. 2 teenage suspects in custody after an explosive device was found outside the official residence of Mayor Zoran Mamdani. What sources are saying about pro-ISIS statements the men allegedly made. You're watching Morning News Now. Welcome back. 2 teenage suspects are under investigation for alleged ties to terrorism here in New York City.
The FBI says they ignited explosive devices at a demonstration over the weekend in front of Gracie Mansion, Mayor Zoran Mamdani's official residence. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock has the latest for us. Sam, good morning.
Hey, guys, good morning. The Joint Terrorism Task Force is now involved here, spearheading the investigation. According to 2 people familiar with the matter, the 2 men allegedly made pro-ISIS statements during their arrest. At the same time, this could have been so incredibly dangerous as, according to police, the devices were actually ignited but not detonated. The mayor weighing in and decrying the violence and the bigotry that was deployed. This morning, federal investigators probing for possible ties to terrorism after 2 suspects seen here handling what the FBI describes as an improvised explosive device, or IED, during an anti-Islam demonstration outside New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani's residence, Gracie Mansion. Police then say a much larger counter-protest formed, including the 2 suspects, who, according to the FBI, ignited the devices, which failed to detonate.
The devices, which were a bit smaller than a football, appear to be a jar wrapped in black tape, importantly with nuts, bolts, and screws, along with a hobby fuse that could be lit.
Video shows the men identified as 19-year-old Ibrahim Kayumi and 18-year-old Amir Balat from Pennsylvania being detained by a swarm of officers. According to 2 people familiar with the investigation, initial tests of the device revealed TATP, a volatile and dangerous type of homemade explosive. Also, according to 2 sources familiar with the matter, both men allegedly made pro-ISIS statements during their arrest, and investigators are now looking at their past travel outside the country. Overnight, authorities searching their homes in Pennsylvania, as Mayor Mamdani, who was inside Gracie Mansion when the incident unfolded, said violence at a protest is never acceptable. The attempt to use an explosive device that hurt others is not only criminal, it is reprehensible. The startling sequence coming just days after a polarizing talk show host in the city calling the mayor a jihadist before later apologizing.
Muslims in this city, for almost as long as we have been in this city, have had to deal with those with power and platform dehumanizing us. I am not ashamed of my faith. I am not ashamed of being the first Muslim mayor in the history of our city.
So another person briefed on the investigation, telling NBC News that a container found in a car believed to be used by the suspects nearby was also, quote, concerning, and has been taken, guys, to the NYPD's bomb squad facility in the Bronx for further examination. So far, no charges have been filed against these two suspects, but there's a very good chance that that could change later today.
See what happens. Sam, thank you so much.
Well, now to a frightening situation involving superstar Rihanna. The LAPD arrested a woman on Sunday after she allegedly opened fire on the Beverly Hills home the singer shares with rapper A$AP Rocky and their children. NBC News correspondent Dana Griffin joins us from LA with the latest. Dana, good morning.
Savannah, good morning to you. Authorities say the suspect fired multiple rounds from an AR-15 style rifle. Rihanna was home at the time, but thankfully no one was hurt.
This morning, a suspect is behind bars after allegedly shooting towards the home of pop superstar and billionaire businesswoman Rihanna.
10 gunshots fired from the vehicle at the gate.
Overnight, an LAPD official telling NBC Los Angeles that multiple rounds were shot from an AR-15 style rifle.
I believe the shots came from across the street.
Several bullets striking the home of 9-time Grammy winner Rihanna and her longtime partner, multi-platinum rapper A$AP Rocky. A neighbor said she was washing dishes when the shots rang out.
I was a little shocked. You know, we don't hear that kind of thing in this neighborhood. It's pretty quiet.
According to police, the 38-year-old singer was at home at the time of the incident when the alleged shooter, a woman, drove to the location and opened fire. Authorities say rounds hit the gate and 4 rounds struck the house, but thankfully there were no injuries to anyone inside. It is not clear if A$AP Rocky or the couple's 3 children were home when the shooting took place. The best-selling artist had her 3rd child just last September, revealing the pregnancy several months earlier at the Met Gala. The Diamond singer, who took center stage at the Super Bowl halftime show in 2023, teasing fans last month that she was back in the studio working on her 9th studio album. As for the scary incident, authorities say the suspect was taken into custody without further incident and that a weapon was recovered.
Nobody should have to deal with being, in fear in your own home. That's terrible.
Rihanna has not spoken publicly about the attack on her home. We have reached out to reps for her and A$AP Rocky, but have not heard back. The LAPD says the suspect's booking information is expected to be released later today. Savannah?
All right, Dana, thank you.
Coming up, a death row plea. Alabama is days away from executing a man for his role in a deadly robbery, even though he did not kill anyone.
How the case is renewing the debate over the controversial felony murder law. That's next. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with a new NBC poll revealing how Americans feel about President Trump's handling of hot-button issues from the war in Iran to the economy.
NBC News political reporter Megan Leibowitz has that and more. Megan, good morning.
Hey, Joe and Savannah, good morning. Yeah, I want to kick things off with that new NBC News poll to give us a snapshot about where the country stands 8 months out from midterms. The poll indicated that 50% of registered voters prefer that Democrats control Congress, while 44% prefer Republican control. President Trump's job approval rating stands at 44%, which is about in line with his approval rating in October. Asked about specific issues, 53% approved of Trump's handling of border security, while 36% approved of his handling of inflation and the cost of living. Let's head next to the Capitol building, where a plaque was installed to honor law enforcement that protected the Capitol during the January 6th riot. The plaque lists law enforcement agencies who responded to the attack and says, quote, their heroism will never be forgotten. Now, let's back up for a second. This comes 2 months after the Senate voted for a resolution for the plaque to be installed. Now, there's a pretty long lead up to this, too. That's because Congress originally planned to install a similar plaque by March 2023 based on a 2022 law. Finally, let's turn to Democrats' response to the war in Iran. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was asked on Meet the Press whether Democrats would block Pentagon funding if the Trump administration asked for more money for the military. Jeffries said that they'd cross that bridge when they get to it, but argued that the administration has not successfully made the case for the Iran war, which he called a war of choice. Remember, Congress passed a $900 billion defense spending bill last year, but after a classified briefing last week, multiple lawmakers said that they expected the Trump administration to ask for more funds for the war. And that's a look at what's making news in politics this morning, guys.
All right, Megan, thank you.
A 75-year-old man is set to be executed in Alabama this Thursday. Charles Sonny Burton has been on death row for more than 30 years for a murder the state knows he did not commit. It's because he was convicted under a controversial law known as felony murder.
So it allows prosecutors to treat anyone involved in certain felonies like robbery or burglary as if they committed intentional murder, even if they did not. Well, now some advocates are calling on Alabama's governor to grant him clemency. Even the victim's daughter is pushing for Burton's life to be spared.
Let's bring in NBC News senior investigative producer Dan Slepian for more on this case. Dan, I know you've been reporting on Sonny Burton's case for quite a while. We'll get to the execution in a moment, but first, walk us up to the history here and how he ended up on death row in the first place.
35 years ago, in 1991, Sonny Burton did take part in an armed robbery of an AutoZone store in Alabama with 5 other men. He went into the store, he stole some money, he fled the store, ran outside, waited by a car. Inside the store, one of his accomplices got into an argument with one of the customers, shot and killed him. As you mentioned, under the felony murder rule, everyone was just as equally charged with murder. But here's what makes Sonny's case unusual, is that the man who actually pulled the trigger and shot the victim also got the death penalty. But more than a decade ago, a court reduced his sentence to life without parole for technical reasons. But on Thursday, Alabama plans on killing Sonny Burton, even though he wasn't the trigger man.
I know you've spoken with Burton. You've had a phone interview with him. What is he telling you about those events and also right now his sentence?
He doesn't deny being involved with it. This is not an innocent case. He explains his state of mind 35 years ago, why he was involved, but he also says that he had no idea that one of his accomplices was going to shoot anybody and that this was going to turn violent. Emotionally, I think that, he's getting prepared for the potentially the inevitable, but he's feels comforted by the fact that the victim's daughter has forgiven him. She wrote an op-ed in December asking the governor to spare his life.
Talk more about that, because it's not just the public reaction, it's that the victim's daughter has spoken out.
Right.
What is it she's saying? Or we're even hearing from jurors who worked on the case.
Exactly right. The victim's daughter wrote an op-ed in December urging the governor to spare his life. And I interviewed a juror who said that 35 years ago, had she known that the actual trigger man wasn't going to die, and 5 other jurors also signed affidavits asking to spare his life. Yet Governor Ivey, Kay Ivey of Alabama, it's really up to her. And so she has indicated that she has no plans to commute his sentence, but she has reserved the right to do so whenever she wants.
How widely has the felony murder rule, what has made this whole chain of events transpire, been used across the country?
See, no one really knows. We know that it's widespread, and we are the only country in the world that uses this law this way. England, which first found it in the 1700s, banned it in 1957. But in the United States, 48 states, all states except Kentucky and Hawaii, have some sort of felony murder law, which means that someone can be called a killer even though they didn't kill anybody.
And you made the point, there are some interesting scenarios that could take place where someone who, again, did not directly kill someone could be held responsible for that, right?
Exactly right. We featured a case the other night where a man named Ryan Holley in Florida lent his car keys to someone who drove to a different house, not knowing that they were going to kill somebody. He was asleep in his bed, and he was charged with murder and got life in prison, which was later reduced. He got clemency himself, but the argument was no car, no crime. So it reignites this debate, not about innocence, but about proportionality. When does the punishment fit the crime? And Sonny's is an extreme of that because he was involved. He admits that he was involved. So it's actually a good case to debate.
To be clear, no one's saying Sonny Burton should be released. They're just saying
He's not
he
even
just
saying
should
that.
not even get a death sentence.
He and his advocates are just saying, give me life in prison. Don't kill me because I didn't pull a trigger and I didn't know anybody was going to be killed.
Is the governor the only option at this point? Are there any other legal remedies with the clock ticking now toward Thursday?
Sonny's attorney has filed an appeal with the U.S. Supreme Court. It's a bit of a Hail Mary. Really, his only realistic option is the governor, like every governor in the country, has the option to grant clemency or mercy at any point. And I believe Governor Ivey has only done that once. Most people do not get clemency. So Thursday is his day. Unless she does something, he will be killed by nitrous oxide, which means he will be suffocated on Thursday.
We know you'll stay on it.
Yeah.
Certainly. Dan Slepian,
Thanks for having
me.
me. Thank you so much.
All right, coming up, unfortunately, allergy season is right around the corner.
Yeah, and what's worse, experts think it could last a little longer than it has in years past. So what you can do to survive the season, that is next.
We're back with some not so good news for anyone who suffers from seasonal allergies. According to a new study, allergy season across the U.S. is getting more intense, starting earlier and lasting longer.
The report blames climate change. It says warmer temperatures and pollution are causing spikes in pollen production. That's making the season about 3 weeks longer than it was back in the 1970s.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar joins us with some tips to help prevent allergy symptoms from getting out of hand. Dr. Azar, good morning. So let's just start on the causes like we just said. What are the main causes of seasonal allergies?
Yeah, well, as you guys mentioned, this is true. Allergy season is starting about 20 days earlier than in past decades. And also the pollen seems to be about 21% higher and more powerful than in the past. So we usually talk about our exposure to pollen as kind of a continuum. In the spring and early summer, we have both deciduous and evergreen trees and plants. That moves into grass in the middle of the summer. And then we get to ragweed towards the end of summer and early fall. Mold, on the other hand, can be a year-round culprit.
So there's still, flu and other junk going around right now because it is still technically winter. It can be tough to tell the difference between, say, a cold and those seasonal allergies. What are some of the ways we can know if it's allergies or if it's something else?
Yeah, so the symptoms of allergies do very much resemble the cold in terms of, nasal congestion, the stuffy nose, sneezing, maybe a little bit of aches and fatigue. But the big difference and the number one thing that'll help people tell the difference is itchiness. Allergies are going to cause itchy eyes, itchy nose, itchy throat. Colds do not do that. And the other thing with a cold and flu, guys, it usually is like 7 to 10 days. Allergies keep going on and on and on. If you're really unclear, you can certainly try an antihistamine and see if your symptoms get better as opposed to treating it as a cold. You can have both at the same time. It's not always that easy, but really the itchiness is the thing, the pearl that I want people to remember.
So you mentioned an antihistamine. What else can people try to do to prevent or help symptoms here when it comes to allergies?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is really important is starting early. So we would recommend that you actually, if you're an allergy sufferer, especially in the Northeast, we're kind of like average right now for trees, you can start taking your allergy medicine now. That includes like a nasal spray, like a Flonase, which is a steroid spray, as well as an oral antihistamine. You want to try to limit your exposure. So that means the pollen is usually highest first thing in the morning, so don't go out and exercise right then and there. Make your indoor environment good as well. What do I mean by that? You can have a HEPA filter. If you have an HVAC system, that filter needs to be exchanged every couple of months, and that will also sort of filter out those allergens. In terms of medications, as I mentioned, Savannah, there are over-the-counter antihistamines, things like Claritin, Allegra, but antihistamines can be taken by mouth, they can be taken in the nose, and they can be eye drops as well, which can be super effective. Nasal sprays, as I mentioned, there are prescription medications. And then there's always allergen immunotherapy, which is, of course, going to be prescribed by an allergist if your symptoms really get very severe.
Yeah, so if you do have to see a doctor, at what point should you do that if your seasonal allergies just keep bugging you?
Yeah, Joe. I think if you've tried all of these things, you're doing all the right things, you're coming inside, you're washing your hair, you're cleaning your pets down and all of that stuff, and you've been taking your medicines over the counter and it's just not helping and not working, then please see an allergist because they can, offer things like shots and immunotherapy that can really desensitize you. And one thing that I always want to mention is those decongestants, the oral decongestants, the FDA has still to formally remove them from the market. There are nasal decongestant sprays that allergists really don't recommend, certainly not for continued use because they can cause rebound. But this is why we have allergists. They do such a great job helping folks with their seasonal allergy symptoms.
All right, Dr. Azar, always good to see you. Thank you.
Some big headlines out of Wall Street this morning, including a major leadership shakeup over at OpenAI.
NBC News business and economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute. Emily, good morning.
Good morning, guys. This new leadership change is raising new questions about AI and national security. Caitlin Kalinowski, who oversaw hardware at OpenAI, has resigned, citing concerns about the company's agreement with the Pentagon. In a post on X, she said it was rushed without the guardrails defined. After the initial deal was made, CEO Sam Altman unveiled a reworked agreement, which he says provides stronger guarantees that the military won't use OpenAI's system for domestic surveillance. Over at Samsung, a major labor dispute is brewing. Unionized workers will vote this week on whether to stage an 18-day strike. The unions are demanding a 7% wage increase and a better bonus system after months of stalled negotiations. Now, if approved, the strike would take place in May and June and would be only the second walkout in Samsung's history. We've reached out to Samsung and have yet to hear back. And X is testing a new way to blend ads into conversations. Some users have noticed new links under their posts. For example, one user posting a screenshot of the new ad that said, quote, "Get Starlink" on a post that mentioned the company. The head of product at X posting in response, quote, "Trying to make an ad product that isn't an ad." He also responded to a user's suggestion to allow affiliate commission if someone does in fact make a purchase, and it does not seem that's part of the plan here. We've reached out to X and haven't yet heard back. Now, guys, I'm not really surprised. I feel like we're kind of seeing ads on every social media platform and honestly really everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
They're definitely all over the place. But they pay the bills.
It makes sense.
We appreciate it.
Thank you. Coming up, we are heading back to Milan Cortina this morning.
When Morning News Now returns, we got a special look at one Team USA athlete who is putting a personal touch on the Paralympic Games. We'll explain next. We have this hour with the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games, which are officially underway in Milan. After the first weekend of events, China is leading the medal board with 16 total wins so far. Team USA has scored 5 medals, including 1 gold for Oksana Masters in the women's 7.5-kilometer biathlon race. This is her 20th Paralympic medal.
That is just incredible. Meanwhile, one Team USA para-snowboarder, Mike Schultz, may not have medaled in his event yesterday, but he's built something that's helping some other competitors earn a spot on the podium. NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa spoke with Schultz before his competition. She joins us live from Cortina. Emily, good morning.
Hey guys, good to be with you. It seems every para-snowboarder, no matter the country that I speak to, knows Mike Schultz. That's because the vast majority of his competitors in his classification rely and use his prosthetics that he designs and assembles back home in Minnesota.
When Mike Schultz isn't charging down a mountain, working out in the gym, or tending to his family's horses,
come here, Chief.
He's here, his workshop in St. Cloud, Minnesota.
The next shop in here is our assembly room.
It's where he designed and built his own high-performance prosthetic that he's now using at the Paralympic Games in Italy.
What gave you the confidence to decide, I can build this?
My second passion in life is I'm a creator. I love to, have an idea and go out to my shop and just build it. And what better project to work on than your own leg?
Schultz's left leg was amputated above the knee after he was thrown from his snowmobile while racing in 2008. It only took the professional athlete a few months to start exploring adaptive sports.
Not knowing what was next, sport's the one thing that really motivated me to look through those difficult times because it really challenges your body and mind to be the best you can be.
Schultz showed us how his prosthetic designs progressed over the years, growing into a company, BioDapt, which he runs with his wife.
Here we go.
They now supply more than 90% of Schultz's competitors who are lower limb amputees at the Games, including from Japan, Germany, Canada, and Team USA. Schultz is eyeing a 4th medal in what he says is his final Paralympics, but is proud BioDapt will be represented on that podium no matter his time.
How does it feel to rep red, white, and blue, even your prosthetic is red, for one last time at the Paralympic Games?
It's the ultimate exclamation point on my athletic career to be at the Games in Italy wearing that red, white, and blue jersey in a sport that I've, helped elevate in performance with our prosthetic equipment. I mean, it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I'd say so. Pretty freaking cool is right. Mike Schultz, by the way, actually brings toolkits to important events like here at the Paralympics to help with any issues with the prosthetics. I asked some of his teammates, Brenna Huckabee, Noah Elliott, who, by the way, won silver medal yesterday, how often he is helping athletes with their prosthetics. They say the better question is, when isn't he helping athletes with their prosthetics? So a man of many talents. He is due to compete again later this week, guys.
Oh, that's just incredible. Emily, thank you so much. And you can catch full coverage of Mike Schultz and all the other competitors in the 2026 Winter Paralympic Games right now on NBC and Peacock.
We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.